To look at the painting Thoughts of the Past, created in a damp London studio overlooking the Thames, you would never guess its painter was born to the highest tiers of Yorkshire gentry. His name was John Roddam Spencer Stanhope. Born in 1829 at Cannon Hall, he was the grandson of the fabulously wealthy Earl of Leicester. He looked, as one neighbor later remarked, like what he is, a Yorkshire squire. Yet beneath the title was a Pre-Raphaelite radical. "26 years after Stanhope's birth, his eldest sister gave birth to a daughter, Mary Evelyn Pickering, better known today as Evelyn De Morgan. Like her uncle, Evelyn was born into an ancient, wealthy lineage. Her grandmother was the daughter of an earl, and like her uncle, she was expected to inherit the quiet and comfortable lifestyle of British high society. At Oxford in the late 1840s, young Stanhope's friends viewed him as a fine fellow, but one given over to drawing and that sort of bosh. He sought out the mentorship of George Frederick Watts and was quickly drawn into the inner circle at Little Holland House. In 1857, Dante Gabriel Rossetti recruited the young aristocrat to help paint the legendary Arthurian murals inside the Oxford Union Debating Society. Working side by side with Edward Burne-Jones and William Morris, Stanhope sacrificed his aristocratic ease to become a core figure of the second-generation Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. While her uncle was making his mark in London alongside Rossetti, young Evelyn Pickering was waging a quiet war in her parents' drawing room. In Victorian high society, art was permissible for a lady as a polite, decorative accomplishment, never as a serious profession. When her mother famously cried, "I want a daughter, not an artist," 16-year-old Evelyn recorded her rage in her diary. This enforced idleness is insupportable. To discourage her, the family instructed her tutor to tell her she lacked talent. Undeterred, Evelyn locked herself in her room, concealed sketchbooks in a false-bottomed bag, and bribed her younger sister and the family nursemaid with pocket money to sit as models. On her 17th birthday, she made her personal vow. "Art is eternal, but life is short. I have not a moment to lose." In 1873, 17-year-old Evelyn defied her family's wishes and enrolled as one of the first female students at the newly established Slade School of Fine Art. She won top prizes for figure drawing, but quickly outgrew academia, leaving after 2 years to travel independently to Rome. Upon her return, she moved into her own private studio in London, using her modest budget to paint large-scale classical works. Contrary to the myth that wealthy ladies painted only for pleasure, Evelyn sold her work aggressively to collectors and provincial galleries. Sales meant cash, and cash meant total artistic independence. While Evelyn was carving out her independence in the 1860s and 70s, her uncle Stanhope was fighting a quiet, painful battle of his own. In 1859, Stanhope married Elizabeth Dawson. Tragic misfortune struck in 1867 when their only child, 7-year-old Mary, died of scarlet fever. To compound his grief, Stanhope suffered from severe chronic asthma. He commissioned Philip Webb, architect of William Morris's famous Red House, to build him a home in Cobham, but the damp Thames Valley air hindered his lungs. Driven out by the smog and damp of industrial London, Stanhope was forced to live on high-altitude retreats, ultimately purchasing just outside of Florence in 1873. This exile to Tuscany transformed Stanhope's artistic destiny. Surrounded by Tuscan light and the olive groves, he abandoned Victorian academic oil painting. He embraced the techniques of the early Italian Renaissance: egg tempera, flattened medieval perspective, rich gold leaf, and gnarled rhythmic landscapes. When Evelyn visited her uncle outside Florence in the late 1870s, mentor and pupil aligned. In Florence, away from London art gossip, Stanhope passed his deep reverence for Botticelli, spiritual allegory, and tempera directly to his gifted niece. In 1877, both uncle and niece were invited to exhibit at the grand opening of London's Grosvenor Gallery, the radical avant-garde alternative to the Royal Academy. For Stanhope, the Grosvenor brought disappointment, while his close friends Edward Burne-Jones and George Frederick Watts were launched into international stardom. Stanhope's Florentine tempera masterpieces, including Love and the Maiden and The Waters of Lethe, received lukewarm reviews. Burne-Jones later reflected sorrowfully on his friend's reception. He was really an artist and he wanted to be praised and encouraged, and wasn't so. It was all uphill to him, but there may be a time for him yet. For a 21-year-old Evelyn, however, the Grosvenor Gallery was a triumph. Her work was celebrated for its extraordinary depth of color and monumental scale. Critics constantly labeled her a disciple of Burne-Jones, a label often used to diminish artists. Yet historical evidence reveals that early on, Evelyn knew almost nothing of Burne-Jones's or Rossetti's paintings. Her rich, jewel-toned visual language was derived independently through her study of Botticelli and the guidance of her uncle Stanhope. In 1887, Evelyn married the celebrated ceramicist and tile designer William De Morgan, a close friend of William Morris and Burne-Jones. It was a legendary partnership of two unworldly, eccentric artists who cared notoriously little for commercial gain. Because William suffered from fragile health, the De Morgans spent every winter in Florence, dividing their time between London and Tuscany. Evelyn painted side by side with her uncle Stanhope, while William experimented with pottery glazes. The two households were famous for their whimsical, joyous irresponsibility. To keep their Italian cook in a good temper, the De Morgans famously took her on outings to the National Gallery. In their later years, both uncle and niece turned their canvases into explorations of the human soul. Stanhope dedicated his remaining energy to architectural and spiritual masterpieces, including a monumental suite of 12 panels depicting the ministration of angels on earth for Marlborough College Chapel. He lived quietly in Florence until his death in 1908. Evelyn, deeply influenced by spiritualism, viewed the physical body as a temporary shell. In masterpieces like The Soul's Prison House, Earthbound, and The Love Potion, she painted glowing, heroic female figures seeking liberation from physical gold, earthly greed, and mortal confines. When World War I broke out in 1914, Evelyn poured her final energies into a dark, visionary series of anti-war allegories. She exhibited these works in her studio to raise funds for the Red Cross. Visitors noted a new, frightening intensity in her late canvases, a raw, tragic confrontation with human suffering. Evelyn De Morgan passed away in 1919, just 2 years after her husband William, leaving behind over 100 monumental oil paintings.